Hello everyone, welcome to Kumari's Kids channel. Today's story is going to be about the Hunchback of Notre Dame. This is their story about Hunchback Notre Dame. Let's get started. Colpin the gypsy was a wonderful puppeteer who practiced his craft in the streets of Paris. He loved to entertain children with the story of the bell ringer of the beloved cathedral, Notre Dame. As the children gathered around, he called their attention to the bells. Listen, Colpin said to his audience. They are beautiful. No, because you know they do not ring all by themselves. They don't, Colfin's puppet asked. No, Colfin said as he pointed the bell tower high above. Ush, Colfin will tell you. It is a tale of a man and a monster. As the children listened, Colfin used his puppets to tell the story. Colvin told the children how 20 years before a gypsy family had been ambushed at the docks of Paris by the wicked judge Frollo. Frollo believed that gypsies represented all that was evil in the world, and his strongest desire was to destroy them all. The whole family was taken prisoner. Frollo ordered the guards to seize the bundle that the gypsy woman held tightly in her arms. The woman ran frantically to the church, shouting scantily, "Please give us scantily." But Frollo overtook her, knocked her to the ground, and killed her. As the judge grabbed the bundle from the dead gypsy's arm. He heard a cry, "A baby!" He wondered, pulling back the blanket. "A monster!" Frollo gasped as he saw the deformed infant inside. Follow us. Frollo was about to drown the baby in the well when the archdeacon emerged from the cathedral. He warned Frollo that the eyes of the Notre Dame were watching him. For the first time in his life, Frollo felt a twinge of fear for his immortal soul. He asked the archdeacon what to do, and the holy man told him to raise the baby as if it were his own son. Frollo would only agree to this if the boy could live in the bell tower Notre Dame, where he would never be seen. And who knows, Frollo asked himself as he looked down on his newly adopted son. Even this foul creature may yet prove one day to be of use to me. There was a silence among the spectators. As the gypsy concluded his story, the children stared wide eyed at the Frollo puppet with his tiny bundle. Colvin posed a riddle to the children gathered before his puppet. Before his puppet theater. Now, here is a riddle to guess if you can. Who is the monster and who is the man? The children had no answer to his riddle, but from the one on whenever they heard the bells of Notre Dame ringing, they remembered the story of the bell ringer. Frollo had indeed raised a gypsy child as his son, but he gave him a cruel name, Quasimodo, which means half-formed. Frollo never allowed Quasimodo to leave the bell tower, where the hunchback rang the bells of the cathedral every day. Quasimodo's life was a lonely one. He spent his days making carvings of the world he saw only from above. He had an entire replica of Paris laid out on a table, and he loved to work on it whenever he could. Up in the tower, Quasimodo's only friends were three gargoyles, Laverin, Victor, and Hugo. Although made of stone, they were the only ones who seemed to care about him. One morning, Quasimodo realized that the Festival of Fools was going to be held in the market square. Usually he loved to watch the festivities from above. But this year it only reminded him of everything he was missing. He wished he could be down there, mixing with the crowd and enjoying the spectacle. The gargoyles understood, and they worried about their lonely friend. What good is watching a party if you never get to go? Laverny asked Victor and Hugo. He's not made of stone like us. Just then, Frollo arrived before Quasimodo. Even asked permission to go to the festival. Frollo dashed his hopes. The world is cruel, he said. Remember, Quasimodo, this is your scanatory. When Frollo left, Quasimodo felt even worse than before. But the gargoyles convinced him that he should put on a cloak and go anyway. Since everyone else could be in the costume for the festival, they would surely never notice him. Although he had never disobeyed his master's orders before, the hunchback told himself that it couldn't hurt to go just this once. Meanwhile, down in the square, a beautiful gypsy named Esmeralda was entertaining the crowd. She caught the eye of the Captain Pohebus, a soldier. He watched as Frollo's men tried to arrest Esmeralda for stealing the money she collected from the crowd. I earned it, Esmeralda said. Gypsies don't earn money, one of the soldiers replied. They steal it. Captain Pohebus tricked the soldiers and got his horse to sit on one of them so that Esmeralda could escape. When she was safe, he asked the soldiers to lead him to the palace of justice. Judge Frollo was expecting him. Frollo told Pohebus about his plan to get rid of the gypsies in Paris. He knew that they had a safe haven within the city called the Court of Miracles. Frollo's plan was to find that place and destroy it. Thus, destroying the gypsies, he crushed an ant colony under a stone to demonstrate what he hoped to do to the gypsies. You have made your point quite vividly, Pohebus said within a shudder. The two of the men headed back to the square. In front of the cathedral, the festival had begun. Colorful costumes and crazy antics filled the square. Quasimodo was happier than he had ever been before in his life. Finally, he fit in. Nobody in the crowd took any notice of him. But then he fell into a tent that happened to be Esmeralda's dressing room. Are you all right? She asked as he bashfully got up to leave. By the way, she said, great mask. Quasimodo found a spot in front of the stage and was entranced by Esmeralda as she danced for the crowd. The gypsy music was memorizing. Esmeralda's shook her tambourine, and as she passed by, she winked right at Quasimodo. At last it was time to crown the king of fools. Many people went up to the crown to crown the king of fools. Many people went up on the stage, but were booted off in shame. They just weren't ugly enough. Finally, Quasimodo was pushed up onto the stage. But when they tried to take off his mask, they realized it was his face. A shocked hush fell over the crowd. And enraged, Frollo saw that Quasimodo had disobeyed him. Then Colpin turned to the crowd and said, "We asked for the ugliest face in Paris, and here he is, Quasimodo, the Hunchback of Notre Dame." The crowd cheered as Quasimodo was crowned King of Fools. The hunchback's heart leaped with joy as confetti filled the air. But the joy didn't last long. One of Frollo's soldiers threw a tomato at Quasimodo. and hit him right on the forehead. Soon the crowd was jeering and laughing. Quasimodo was tied down and humiliated. Frollo refused to help the hunchback, wanting to teach Quasimodo a lesson for disobeying him. But Esmeralda couldn't stand to watch the cruel display. She united Quasimodo and shouted for justice. Mark my words, gypsy, Frollo warned. You will pay for this insolence. Frollo's men tried to capture Esmeralda and arrest her, but she escaped into a Notre Dame cathedral. Frollo entered the church, prepared to arrest her. Luckily, Phoebus had followed her inside and convinced her to claim sanctuary in the church. Angrily, Frollo retorted to Esmeralda, "Set one foot outside, and you are mine." Quasimodo overheard Esmeralda in the church. He tried to hide from her, but she saw him, followed him up to the tower. Quasimodo warned her to stay away from him, that he was a monster. Esmeralda gently lifted his palm. "I don't see any monster lines," she said. Quasimodo began to think that maybe she was right. The kindness Esmeralda showed him also made him think that maybe Frollo was wrong and gypsies weren't all evil. He offered to help her escape. By leaping from the cathedral tower and climbing down the walls, Quasimodo carried Esmeralda to safety. She gave him a worn band on a necklace to thank him. "Just remember," she said, "when you wear this woven band, you hold the city in your hand." When he got back to the church, Quasimodo ran into Phoebus, who was searching for the gypsy. At first, the hunchback didn't trust the soldier, but then Phoebus told Quasimodo to tell Esmeralda he meant her no harm. Soon, Frollo found out that Esmeralda had escaped from Notre Dame. He ordered his men to search every building in Paris, but she was nowhere to be found. He integrated a miller who was known to shelter gypsies. When the man denied having seen Esmeralda, Frollo set fire on his house. Phoebus saved the family from the fire, but was then arrested by Frollo's men. When he tried to escape, he was shot by an arrow and fell in the river. Frollo left Phoebus for dead. The fire spread throughout the city. As Esmeralda was nearby and had seen Frollo's soldiers shot at Phoebus with their arrows, she rescued him from the river and took him to the bell tower. Esmeralda asked, Quasimodo answered. Sadly, Quasimodo looked at Esmeralda with perhaps and realized that she would always see the bell ringer as a friend and nothing more. He felt as if his heart would break. Quasimodo hid perhaps under the table as he heard Frollo approaching. Frollo entered the room and bragged that Esmeralda had gotten away. He accused Quasimodo of betraying him. You helped us escape? Frollo shouted. And now all the Paris is burning because of you. Quasimodo watched in horror as Frollo grabbed his carving of Esmeralda and set it on fire. He said he knew where the gypsy hideout was and warned. Tomorrow at the dawn I attack with 1,000 men. Frollo left, but perhaps had heard the judge's threat. He told Quasimodo that they must find the court of miracles and warn Esmeralda right away. At first, Quasimodo didn't want to go, but then the gargoyles chimed in again, convincing him that he had to help his friend Esmeralda. He showed perhaps the woven band she had given him. They found the gypsy liar by entering a grave in the cemetery. But once inside there, they were attacked by a group of gypsies dressed as skeletons. The gypsies accused Barnabas and Quasimodo of being Frollo's spies. The two were bound and gagged, and a mock trial was performed. In the Court of Miracles, Colpin said, "It's a miracle if you get out alive." Just as the two men were about to be hanged, Esmeralda saw what was happening and spoke up. "Stop," she shouted at the crowd. "These men aren't spies. They are our friends. This is the soldier who saved the miller's family, and Quasimodo helped me escape the cathedral." After Esmeralda had united them and removed their gags, Perhaps turned to the crowd. We have come to warn you," he announced. "Frollo's coming." The gypsies quickly started preparing to leave their safe haven. They knew that if Frollo found them, they would all be arrested. Or worse, "You took a terrible risk coming here," said Esmeralda to Perhaps. "It may not exactly show, but we are grateful." The three friends embraced. "Don't thank me," Perhaps replied. "Thank Quasimodo. Without his help, I would never have found my way here." "Nor would I," Frollo cried triumphantly. As he arrived with his armed soldiers, he led him right to you, my dear. "You are a liar," Esmeralda retorted. She knew Quasimodo would never betray her like that. Frollo must have tricked him. "Locked them up," Frollo ordered. The three friends had no way to defend themselves. Perhaps and Esmeralda were led away in chains. As for Quasimodo, Frollo said, "Take him to the bell tower and make sure he stays there." Up in the tower, chained two pillars, Quasimodo looked on in horror as the platform was prepared for Esmeralda to be burned at the stake. Perhaps was imprisoned in cage in the square. Quasimodo felt defeated as he heard Frollo announce, "The prisoner has been found guilty for the crime of witchcraft. The sentence, death." The gargoyles told Quasimodo he should help, but he told them to leave him alone. "Okay, Guasi, we'll leave you alone," said Hugo. "After all, we are only made out of stone." Victor added. The Laverne said, "We just thought maybe you were made of something stronger." Quasimodo hung his head in shame. He thought he should never have gone against his master's wishes. Then he wouldn't have been in this mess. The chains chafed his wrist, and he saw the fire being lit. Quasimodo couldn't stand it any longer. He pulled with all his might on the chains around his arms, and the cathedral columns crumbled. He was free. Quasimodo climbed down the cathedral walls and saved Esmeralda from the fire just as she fainted from the smoke. He carried her back up to the top of the cathedral and there, holding her limp body over his head, he cried, "Scanetry, Scanetry, seize the cathedral," Frollo ordered. As soldiers advanced on the church, Quasimodo laid Esmeralda down in his bed. Then he and the gargoyles began to throw anything they could find down at the soldiers. Stones, bricks, and pieces of wood crashed down into the square below. A huge beam crushed Frollo's carriage. Frollo told his men to use the beam, break down the doors of Notre Dame. They began to ram to the beam into the tall wooden doors of cathedral. In all the hubbub, perhaps was able to snatch the keys to this cage from one of the guards and escape. He turned to address the gathered crowd. "Citizens of Paris, Frollo has persecuted our people, ransacked our city, and now he has declared war on Notre Dame herself. Will we allow it?" "No," roared the crowd as it turned on Frollo's army. Quasimodo and the gargoyles continued to fight as best they could. Lavani even ordered the birds that lived in the tower to attack the soldiers. "Fly, my prettiest, fly," she cried. But the soldiers continued to advance the cathedral, battering the door with the beam. The door of the church was about to give when Quasimodo had an idea. He took a cauldron of hot lead that he used to repair the bells and poured it on the attacking soldiers. "Esmeralda, we have beaten them back," Quasimodo cried to the still figure. But there was no response. Quasimodo looked up just in time to see Frollo's shadow raising a dagger over his head. He knocked his master to the floor. "All my life you have told me that the world is dark, cruel place," Quasimodo said as Frollo cowered before him. "But now I see that the only thing dark and cruel about it is people like you." Just then he heard a whisper. "Quasimodo, Esmeralda was awake, but Frollo had heard her too, and he unsheathed his sword." Quasimodo picked her up and ran to the balcony with Frollo in pursuit. Frollo and Quasimodo's struggle led them into the gargoyles surrounding the bell tower, surrounding the bell towers. Just as Frollo raised his sword at Esmeralda, once again the gargoyle he stood on cracked, and Frollo fell to his death. Quasimodo also fell, but perhaps leaned out from a window several floors below and caught his friend just in time. Later, perhaps an Esmeralda emerged from the cathedral to cheering crowd. Esmeralda turned and beckoned to Quasimodo. The crowd fell silent, unsure of how to react to the odd-looking man. Then a little girl came up to him, gently touched his face. Up in the tower, Hugo, Victor, Levany smiled as they saw Quasimodo carried around the square. 3 cheers for Quasimodo, cried Colfin. Okay, this is the end of the Hunchback story. Thank you for watching.